Oh, hey, thanks for clicking on this. I don't know how to start these things. I'm just going to get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about performing authenticity on social media and how knowledge influencers have sort of risen as a response to this crisis of legitimacy. I have my water, I have my glasses in case I want to look a little smarter, and I have this article to guide our discussion. Move me out of the way. It's called Influencers Navigating Platforms, Expertise, Branding, and Authenticity. This year in the Nordic Journal of Media Studies. If you want to pull up the article to read first or follow along, it's linked below. I have some notes here. But basically, we're going to unpack three main tensions that this article highlights, which is the algorithm as a disciplinary agent, the shift in expertise and knowledge influencers, and the balance of branding and authenticity. So let's start by talking about the algorithm. One thing this article did a really good job at explaining is how the essential currency of social media is visibility. Because visibility directly translates into revenue, into impact, into social status. I feel like there's a bit of a glare. I'm gonna tilt me down. Pretty early on, they talk about how this isn't just dancers on TikTok. This has crept into our broader culture. Politicians will have these really polished social media pages. The White House will invite influencers to press briefings. Everyone's kind of using these influencer tactics. And they call this influencer creep. And this is a theme that I'm going to come back to. The fact that we're not necessarily interested in critiquing individuals for playing the game and existing in this ecosystem. It's more about the ecosystem itself and what's changed and what that means for us. There's one good quote that I really liked in this paper. Yeah, right here. They describe algorithms as invisible yet omnipresent and omnipotent monster-like agents. Yikes. A bit of an intense quote, but I think it really gets to this dread of invisibility. Algorithms are opaque and really hard to understand, which leads to you feeling this lack of control over the system. And just when you think you've cracked the code, the rules change, which has kind of branched off into this whole industry of algorithm expertise. Because you get these people who are self-proclaimed experts on how the algorithm works and how you can succeed in this ecosystem. The authors cite someone here who describes that as algorithmic lore, which I love because it is lore. It's really these subjective personal experiences with maybe a few data points, but they're not exactly how the algorithm works. They also make a really good point about how this type of expertise is often gendered and it's usually men making this type of content. But point is, algorithms are not just sorting content. They're determining who gets seen. It's this disciplinary agent that pretty much shapes every single content decision. And here's where I feel like I have to mention McLuhan's "The Medium is the Message," because content doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every single thing shared online exists in this container of algorithm. Or maybe I can quote Kamala Harris. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree. You exist in the context of all in which you live and came before you. Facts. So now let's talk about authority and expertise. And the main thing here is the rise of knowledge influencers. That's your thought daughters and your book talkers, the internet researchers. And this is a huge shift in how knowledge is disseminated. Traditionally, knowledge was held in institutions, right? That's your universities, your governments, and without some sort of degree or formal credential, you were not qualified to share knowledge. But with social media today, knowledge influencers have changed that. Influencers do not gain legitimacy, voice, and visibility through traditional hierarchies or institutional roles, but rather exert an influence based on popular and ordinary expertise. With knowledge influencers, there may be some sort of formal expertise to just kind of baseline qualify somebody, like a university degree or something like that. But the authors describe the secret sauce as this informal expertise, right? That's their personal success stories and their lived experiences, whatever makes them relatable. And it's kind of the perfect storm for knowledge influencers to rise, because we're also seeing this crisis of legitimacy, declining trust in institutions and traditional media, or anxiety around AI and bot content. But people online can position themselves as these authentic outsiders. And what that means is expertise becomes much more based on the self. Which brings us to the topic of branding versus authenticity. So if having expertise is reliant on being this authentic outsider, then there's a lot of labor that comes along with upholding this authenticity. and balancing it with monetization. The authors call this authenticity labor. It's this huge balancing act between truth and fake, self-promotion and vulnerability, labor and leisure, which is not necessarily new to social media. You know, there's a quote here from 1972 about sincerity losing its aura, but I think it's just kind of heightened and amplified with social media. People online, rightfully so, want to make money and secure brand deals and grow their personal brand, but this technically contradicts with genuine authenticity. And so we see all of these contradictory demands put on people in an already invisible sort of system determined by the algorithm. And it's at this point that I had a little bit of a, how you say, existential crisis, because I was like, wait a minute, is this play about me? Am I just a cog in the knowledge economy, and am I contributing to all of these problems? And this is where I'm reminded of Meryl Streep. Okay, hear me out on this. So I actually haven't seen Devil Wears Prada. Sorry, don't kill me. But I know this monologue that Meryl Streep gives because it's awesome. Basically, Anne Hathaway's character was like, I don't really get this stuff. Both of those sweaters look blue in the same. And Meryl Streep just rips her a new one and says, oh, you think that you're exempt from this system, right? That you can just pick that blue sweater and not give much thought into it. But really that specific shade of blue, that cerulean, was not just some random decision, but it was determined by fashion executives years ago and trickled its way down to her eventually. Where was I going with this? Oh, right. This is where I wanted to come back to the need to focus on the system, not the individual. Because it doesn't matter what the system is. There will always be people who play the game and make the most of it. Meaning that if it wasn't knowledge influencers, it would be something else. It just so happened to be the perfect storm that led to the rise of this very specific type of content. So I think it's important that we as users recognize that we're all co-creating the rules of this environment, right? Like, yes, the algorithm is acting as this disciplinary agent, but it's also this cultural piece of the declining trust in institutions, the rise of anti-intellectualism, and all of this crisis of legitimacy, which has led to people stepping into this role as knowledge influencers. The article is obviously an academic article, so it's a little dense, but I did find it to be just a really good overview of this very specific phenomenon. And I guess the question is, where to now? I don't know. I think we're definitely seeing a shift in what people want. Like, a lot of people are getting really fatigued with algorithm. And maybe it comes down to devaluing authenticity, right? Like with traditional media, with TV and film, it was inherently performative, and that was okay. And now with social media, it's this dance of, is it authentic? Is it performed? And maybe as we sort of grow through this, we'll shift away from authenticity as the driving force, the main currency there. Or we'll figure out new ways to gauge authenticity that isn't about how spontaneous your video looks or how much behind the scenes you show. And I think this is why I'm so interested in digital culture, because it's so important to look at yourself as, you know, one piece in this broader ecosystem. Like, there's a lot of talk about how algorithms are destroying culture. I DNF'd that one book, Filter World. I just couldn't get through it because all the time, because so often we're blaming people for playing the game when the reality of it is the game was never fair to begin with. Anyway, I think that's it. If you disagree, if you yes and anything I said, let's talk about it. Otherwise, I will see you next time. There's balloons. That's so beautiful.